All right, good morning. This is Jeff Orrock here at the National Weather Service in Wakefield. I'm going to talk about the weather here for the rest of this week and into a little bit of early next week. We've got a lot of things going on, so we'll kind of just jump right into it here and talk about what's happening. Before we actually get into, there's a cold front moving across the area, and I'll kind of show the current conditions as far as what's happening right now. Really kind of interesting seeing the temperature differences here, where Southeast Virginia, still holding on to the mid 70s, but that cold front has already pushed through Williamsburg. I'm about to get through Smithfield here and Hampton, and so it's going to continue to push southeast. Just had a gust of 40 miles an hour there at Fort Eustis. Temperature dropped pretty quickly and continuing to drop. Most of y'all across Central Virginia really in the upper 40s, maybe getting into the low 50s, and you get back into the mountains, and the temperatures there are already in the 30s, and some snow being reported once you get in the northwest Piedmont and then get back out towards the mountains. So even Louisa now already getting down into the 40s. So this is a really powerful cold front. Got a lot of cold, high pressure building in behind it very rapidly. That's why we've been seeing such basically rapid temperature drops, and also some pretty good winds behind the front with some gusts 35, 40. Even maybe going to be a little bit higher by the time it gets down here. The parts of Hampton Roads could see gusts of 45 or so. In fact, if I switch over from the temperatures to just some of the wind gusts, again, this is that wind gust there, almost 47 miles an hour there when the storm's kind of coming down, the James River. So some pretty strong wind gusts, even 53 out there on the eastern shore. But the highest wind definitely has been on the water. But you're definitely, here's a wind gust 36 here at the Richmond Airport, miles an hour. So there's some pretty good winds with the front back behind it, and still some pretty good north winds, anywhere from 25 to 30 mile an hour gusts, even over northern Virginia. So the gustiness is going to continue for a while, and we'll see the winds decreasing a little bit later on. Just kind of taking a quick look at the radar so you can kind of see what's going on. You see the cold front there, right there on the radar, that little thin blue line. That's the cold front. So it's actually making its way to the JRB and coming across the HRBT now, and just about to slam into basically this down here towards Shore Drive and towards First Landing State Parks. That's the actual cold front itself. And then you're seeing some showers, a few storms developing just north of the front. And you're seeing a much bigger area of precipitation to the west. And some of that, I'll kind of put it in motion. I don't know how well the loop's going to come across in the presentation. But you can definitely see that front rushing south, some precipitation developing north of it. And then this bigger shield of just kind of steady rain and even some snow coming here from the west. In fact, Lynchburg has snow being reported and starting to stick to the mulchy areas and things out there. So that's all going to continue to push east. We've got some more rain coming, continued windy conditions, and maybe even a little bit of snowfall. So that's what's going on for today. As we move in through time, just kind of walk through the weather maps here. We have this cold front moving through today, and later this afternoon, it's going to be offshore, but all the precipitation's falling behind the front, and that's where we may see a little bit of that wintry mix, and probably going to see a burst of snow moving its way across most of the area later this afternoon, with no accumulation really expected. By the time you get into this evening, though, everything's kind of offshore, high pressure building in, and then we jump into basically Friday morning. We start out with high pressure in control, but you see another strong cold front here coming across parts of the Ohio River Valley, and that one's going to be making its way towards us. And then by Friday evening, that front is just about coming into the Commonwealth, starting to get into West Virginia. But then by Saturday morning, that next cold front's coming through. So kind of just reinforcing some of the cool temperatures that we're going to have in place behind this first front. Get into Sunday. Sunday doesn't look too bad. Stay dry most of the day, but this warm front is going to slowly start to lift north. So there's some rain chances that come into play later on Sunday. But then by Monday morning, there's going to be a really powerful cold front, again, approaching us from the west. And we're going to have to watch out for this one. There's going to be a big surge of warm air ahead of this system. There's going to be a really abrupt temperature change. There's going to be a lot of shear in the atmosphere just ahead of this front. And this may actually help generate some severe weather here on Monday. This is a pretty impressive little system coming through. So stay tuned for Monday afternoon, Monday evening, when this thing actually makes its way into central and eastern Virginia, North Carolina, and Maryland. This thing may actually be able to generate quite a bit of severe weather. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that really for Monday. But then by Tuesday, that's well offshore. Again, another shot of cold air. It's springtime, so we're just kind of going up and down with temperatures with one front after the other. And the middle of next week looks pretty nice. got high pressure building in, and things should be doing pretty good for us. So that's kind of the fronts here and kind of what's going on in the weather pattern. For today, there is a marginal risk of severe weather. It's mainly to our south, so it's at the Albemarle Sound south. The rest of us were really just in some general thunder, and we've seen a few little lightning strikes here or there. Nothing severe, basically just gusty showers, and the better severe threat really is to our south and really down over eastern North Carolina, especially south of the Albemarle. That's kind of where they have the best chance. And in fact, there's a severe thunderstorm watch down there south of the Albemarle Sound going down towards Hatteras and Wilmington. But really not expecting any severe weather today, just some windy conditions. And so again, that damaging wind risk really way to the south, really basically south of the Roanoke and south of the Albemarle is really where that risk is for today. So we're really not expecting any severe weather. Since we are talking severe weather, this is from the Storm Prediction Center, and they do already have us outlooked for potential severe weather on Monday. So that's pretty far out in time. So anytime we're being outlooked this far out, in time means that we're going to have to keep an eye on it. That there's definitely going to be some potential for severe weather on Monday. And, right now, just given the potential environment, all modes of severe weather are possible. We could actually see an environment that could support some tornadoes, damaging wind, and large hail. It could be kind of a classic spring severe weather day. So kind of stay tuned. We'll keep an eye on Monday afternoon. Obviously, we'll have another live briefing Monday morning. So we'll be able to walk everybody through kind of the progression of how Monday may progress. It does look like it's going to be an afternoon and evening kind of an event. So we'll be able to get ahead of it Monday morning and kind of brief everybody on how the day is going to play out. Just kind of file that away, enjoy the weekend, and realize there could be some severe weather here on Monday. As far as today, we'll see. Hopefully everybody can pick up some decent rain. We'll see. I think the average is going to be around maybe a half inch. Some places could be a little bit less. Some places could be a little bit more, but I think the average is going to be either side of a half inch. And you can kind of see those rain chances at all of our different cities. It's going to end pretty rapidly from west to east. So in Farmville, things are going to be over by, between 3 and 4 o'clock, maybe a little bit of light snow mixed with some rain there. But really for everybody, by the time you get to about 6 o'clock, except for areas in the far southeast, this event's really coming to an end. The rain's going to be really ending and the snow showers are going to be ending, maybe kind of lingering a little bit longer over southeast Virginia, because again, this event's going to kind of end from west to east. Same thing with Maryland Eastern Shore. It might take a little bit longer to end there, as well as down towards Currituck. But again, it's just this big quick shot of precipitation coming through for the rest of today and through the afternoon. But then tonight, things pretty much shut down, and we're not going to have too many issues. Now, the cold air is really catching up. You saw the surface map there with how cold the air is, especially back towards the mountains in the Piedmont, and that is surging east. And so, in our forecast for most of our cities, except for maybe in the far southeast, we do have the precipitation, changing over to a rain-snow mix and maybe even a little bit of a burst of snow. So depending on where you are, sometime around, early this afternoon, that cold air is going to catch up and we're going to start to see things transitioning a little bit. And we're going to see some bursts of snow, especially across central Virginia, here in Richmond between 2 and maybe 4 o'clock. When we're going to see maybe some of that snow falling. Could even last until about 5 o'clock or so. We'll eventually catch up in places like Virginia Beach, maybe a little bit later, about 5 or 6. Same thing down there in Chesapeake. Maybe that cold air catches up about 5 or 6. And we do kind of change over from that rain to maybe a quick little burst of snow. Further up north in Cambridge, you definitely see we change over a little bit earlier on. That cold air is already starting to get pretty close. So maybe about 2 o'clock, we get that rain snow mix there for a while. So just don't be shocked. Looking at the temperatures, obviously the temperatures are all above 32 degrees. So temperatures are above freezing. The ground's warm. Ground's going to be wet in most areas because we're going to have some rain ahead of this. So it's going to be tough to really get any accumulation. You might see some on the grassy surfaces, mulch surfaces, maybe some elevated surfaces. It could be a good little burst of snow, but it's just not going to really be able to accumulate and cause any impact. And look at the temperatures, really all pretty much in the mid 30s with snowfall. So not going to be really much of an issue here. The probabilities of actually seeing a little bit of snow stick, have gone up. This is the probability of seeing like 1/10 of an inch of snow. So like visible snow on the ground. And you can kind of see the probabilities here. Yesterday, they were running about 15 to 20%, and now they've actually jumped up to about 40 to 60% across a lot of central Virginia. So it's kind of suggesting there could be a quick burst of snow that might stick to the mulch and the grass, but that's going to be about it. This is only for 1/10 of an inch of snow. So basically not an impactful snow. But again, we could see that burst of about 1 to 2 inch per hour snow rate. So we'll see if we can do that. We might see a little bit of light snow accumulation, especially across central Virginia, a little bit up here towards Maryland Eastern Shore. But you notice the probabilities of any kind of snow accumulation decrease once you get over southeast Virginia and northeast North Carolina. So, if we see it, it's going to be basically inland and maybe over parts of Maryland. So we'll see how it goes, but not going to be an impact. Looking at some of the winds today, they're already here. Winds have already kind of kicked in with that quick northwest wind. And so pretty much going to be gusting into the 30s, maybe even some gusts up to the 35 inland. When you get closer to the bay and stuff, we're probably going to see gusts getting close to 40, 45. See, Corolla here, we've got gusting almost to 40. And that may be true for a lot of folks here on the lower bay and going down Virginia Beach and parts of the eastern shore. So going to be some higher winds coming down the James River and down the bay, as it always does, kind of unrestricted coming down the water, but really windy everywhere, even Salisbury gusting to 35 for most of the day. So going to be a windy day as this cold air surges in and kind of settles into the area. And then you'll see those winds starting to decrease some this evening, except along the coast. It may stay up a little longer, but for most of us, you really see those winds start to decrease, this afternoon, and especially by this evening, those winds are really letting up. And we're not going to have too much of a wind problem, after about, let's say, 5, 6 o'clock, depending on where you are. Oh, sorry, let me jump this. So look at the precipitation. On the left-hand side is kind of the precipitation we're going to see, now through, early, let's say through Sunday. So about maybe half an inch on average. We'll see if we can get that much. On the right is really the precipitation that's really for next week. So that's going to be with the Monday system. So you're really seeing another good shot of rainfall there on Monday. Again, some of that may bring some severe weather with it. So you're just kind of seeing two rounds, the round today on the left and the round on Monday here on the right, as far as just a couple little shots where we're going to have some chance for getting some precipitation. Not a drought buster, but at least, we're going to get the ground wet. So kind of just looking at how things are going to play out, you definitely see those temperatures, dropping tomorrow behind this front, but there's a little bit of a slight rebound here as we get into Saturday and Sunday, getting back in the 60s, maybe even low 70s. And then Monday starts out warm. So that's that southerly flow ahead of that next system. And we kind of start getting temperatures well back into the 70s. But then that cold front's going to come through there Monday afternoon. And then if you look at the highs on Tuesday, only in the 40s. So again, another sharp cold front coming through on Monday late in the day. Could bring us some severe weather along with some colder temperatures there on Tuesday and Wednesday. And you really see how cold it is when you look at some of these low temperatures Tuesday and Wednesday. I mean, we're talking about lows getting back in the 20s and around 30. So that's a sharp cold front. That's going to be a good one. So even for tomorrow morning, you're looking at a lot of temperatures, here in the upper 20s to low 30s. So that cold air that's surging in now, it's going to be cold tomorrow morning and really cold on cold lows there even on Saturday and Sunday, but not nearly as cold. But then you see that shot coming in Tuesday, Wednesday. That's going to be another good cold front come through. And you kind of see the timing here. The best chance of precipitation with that next system is going to be Monday afternoon and evening. And it's already a pretty high chance of precipitation there for Monday afternoon and Monday evening. Shifting gears into the marine, we are seeing some gale force wind gusts. We do have some special marine warnings in effect for the bay right now for some of those stronger gusts. And we do have gale warnings for the mouth of the bay and going on out into the ocean where that wind kind of accelerates out the bay. And we get some of those higher winds that kind of last longer here from the mouth of the bay and off the coast. So kind of just looking at it day by day. Here in the upper left, that's where we're expecting gale conditions in the red today. So again, kind of that lower bay, mouth of the bay and east is kind of what we're expecting. The orange represents the small craft advisory conditions here. So for tomorrow, still going to see some small craft conditions on the bay and a lot of the coastal waters, but then a lot less wind on Saturday. And then the winds kick back in a little bit. The south winds increase here on Sunday night. And then again into Monday, pick up even a little bit more as those south winds increase ahead of that front. And that front comes through later in the day on Monday. So again, this is just kind of spacing things out through the weekend on the marine side. Some pretty good northwest winds today with that front. They do decrease later tonight. So you can see here peak wind gusts only about 15 to 20 knots. Southerly flow increases a little bit here on Friday ahead of that next little weak front that tries to sneak through here Friday night, early Saturday. And then the winds pick up again, later on Sunday into Monday, basically ahead of that next system. But nothing too extreme, just comparing your sustained wind versus your gust here. So today really is the windiest day right now that we're watching. And we with that cold air surging in behind the front. But the south winds do pick up a little bit here again Friday afternoon. Basically, as that cold front pushes offshore, winds go south, and we get a little bit of a south wind, about 20, 25 knots on Friday. But the weak front tries to push through Saturday, and it kind of stalls out. So you see the winds are pretty light, and then those winds increase again late Sunday, and especially into Monday, which is not shown here ahead of that next front. So we'll have to watch out for that. But right now we're thinking it's going to be sub-gales until probably sometime Monday afternoon. Monday afternoon, we could be looking at gale conditions again in the bay and the coastal waters, and that could last a little bit into Tuesday morning. So we'll have to kind of watch out for that on the marine side. Waves out there today running about 5 to 6 feet on average there in the ocean. Bays running about 4 feet or so. So that's with that northwest wind really kicking those waves up, especially on the eastern half of the bay and out there in the coastal waters. So that's our significant wave height, 4 to 5 feet. Out in the ocean, going to see some 7, maybe even 8 footers out there as far as your occasional wave height, especially as these winds continue to blow today and the seas build a little bit. Might start to see some occasional wave heights out there of 7 to 8 feet with your significant wave height of around 5 feet.